advice do you have for guitar players? Maybe 3 points.
Okay, cool. Okay, the number one thing that comes to mind was given to me by my teacher at USC. I think it was Richard Smith who said this. He's a professor at USC, also an amazing artist. He does like jazz music and sort of pop and soul and guitar-based stuff, beautiful. But his advice when I came to USC, I was really into jazz, and he said, you know, your number one focus should be on developing your own sound. And I was like, but I want to be like Wes Montgomery. He's like, yeah, that's not really gonna. Then you'll just sound like Wes Montgomery. But like, really hone in on your own sound. So that stuck with me, and thankfully, it stuck with me in a subconscious way. I didn't force like a new sound, like what hasn't been heard before. Okay, let me fit that niche. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna like listen to pop music, listen to classical music, listen to jazz music, all the stuff that I like, and just keep listening to it and hope that it kind of finds its way in. And eventually I feel like it did. So that's an important thing, I think, to not try to be like Jimi Hendrix or try to be like Eric Clapton or Wes Montgomery or Joe Pass or John Mayer or whoever. Like I would encourage people to find their own sound, because we need that new sound that kid in Minnesota is going to come up with more than we need a copy of what's already been done beautifully, you know? Yeah. So that's one thing that comes to mind. Another thing that comes to mind is, let's see. Oh yeah, this is nerdy, but like, work on inversions, like your voicings, like C major, bar chord, great. If you want to be a guitar player who plays for session work, for hired gun stuff, it's eventually going to become a necessity to know 30 different shapes of C. I'll show you an example, actually. Let me do that. So, let's see, this is a tune. So if someone's this is cool and all, you know. C's cool, but this is also a different inversion. Not inversion, different voicing. That is the G on top. That is the C on top. I mean, E on top. Those are different to me. This has the G in the bass, very country sort of. This has the E in the bass. Just knowing those voices, and then you get higher. And then you add twos, right? So like getting all those voices out of the fingers to where if a producer says, or an artist, or you're writing your own song and you're like, it doesn't feel right yet, like this, it sounds too happy, whatever, then you want this. Okay, that's more what I want. You know, those subtleties, like just to pay attention to those subtleties and learn all the voicing so you can eventually just know this, like that to me that's so key. And then eventually they do what's called drop two voicings. I say work on those. The whole dominant 7 chord voicings, like just knowing them all the way up and down the neck, that stuff's so helpful. So that'll be the second thing, just getting those voicings down. The third thing, pay attention. I'm talking like a teacher now. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't like when people say do this. It's like do whatever you want. But this I like paying attention to this. I think most people don't. They just eventually just play with it. But I spent like an entire summer like obsessing about if I was gonna hold it like George Benson. He kind of does this, I think, which gives a very throaty sound. Not just because you're picking up here, but because there's something about the angle of your thumb and hand. I can't really play that way. Then I tried playing with my thumb, like Wes. That's fine, you know. Then I tried playing with my pick between the two fingers like that, you know, and I was trying. It's very a thinner sound. Then I tried playing with my pick the way I do now, which is like that, you know, like. Then I eventually started paying attention to the angle of the pick. Like if I'm gonna go like this, can you see it? It's different than if I did this. Angle it. So much more air and sound comes in. Versus that's pure tone, this is air. Sort of like when a singer goes versus air versus pitch tone air. Like what do you do? So I'd say focus on that. Like play with it. See what makes you inspired. Those are my 3 pieces of advice. So what was it? It was develop your own sound, work on those freaking voices all the way up to the neck, know them all, create your own, and then do the pick. Like really focus on the pick.
Awesome.
I don't know. That's what I do. Those are my 3 main ones.
It's really similar to that book I was talking about that I wrote, Use Your Buzz to Play the Guitar.
Yes, right.
There's a technique in it called, I call it zooming in on techniques, and it's the same thing with even something as simple as a pick slide. You know, going, okay, if I slide slowly, what happens? Just being aware of it. You know, if I go faster, what's the difference? Just little things.
Love it.
The second one that we've got is musicians often feel like this is the case with a lot of areas, I guess, but people look at someone else who's doing successful or doing well and they think, it's easy for them. But we all know that's not always the case. I mean, we all go through challenges and that. So what's an example of something either as a musician or working in the industry that you've had to overcome or work around?
Well, we already mentioned, I guess, the singing thing. That was something I had to kind of, work around that. The exact phrasing of the question, I kind of like, the sunlight was blocking me, and I didn't hear the middle part. That was key. You were saying...
Oh, that's right. Basically, what's a challenge that you've had to overcome? Maybe as a guitar player first.
Okay, yeah, I've had tons of guitar player. Let me think of the best one, though. One challenge for me has been picking, which is, we just talked about it. My brother's a guitar player. I've probably practiced 20 times as much as he has, if not more than that. Like, I've really done a lot of practicing, and he just feels it naturally. He doesn't like obsess about practicing. Doesn't love practicing, and yet he can play a major scale faster than I can. I mean, I can play it. I can play it with tricks, smoke and mirrors. I can play it fast. I can go. Wait, let me think of this. Right, but I'm not picking like any notes. I'm hammering on everything. My brother. He's so fast, and I'm like not a great up and down. This is not my game. And so like I'm not good at metal and stuff because of that. Those guys are masters of that crap. So yeah, that's a challenge I've kind of had to overcome by creating a different way of playing. Like I had to go, well, that's not my bag. So if I want to play these fast notes, I have to figure this out. Yeah. So I sat in my bed and like learning like, okay, so pick here, pick, and then hammer on these two, and then pick, and like getting my rhythm down of like knowing that string's coming up, and I'm gonna pick it just in time to hammer on 3 more times. That was a challenge. I don't know if that's too specific though, but that's been
it's good.
Yeah.
Did you have to slow it down when you were practicing those things?
I slow things down crazy. I mean, when I practice, oh man, it gets slow bill over here. I just learned a new turnaround for jazz over that song, All the Things You Are. I was watching Carol Kay give a little video on it, and she was talking about all this stuff, this jazz stuff. Normally the song goes F minor to B flat minor, to E flat 7 to A flat, to D flat major, this 2 half diminished major, like Cole Porter turnaround type thing, to C major. And her turnaround, I don't even know who came up with this turnaround, was F minor, B flat minor. Instead of going to E flat 7, they went D minor, G7 to A flat major. So I sat in my bed for like half an hour yesterday just going. So I did that, and then I did it again to think of what notes were happening. And then I started doing it this way to see the E flat chord, just to see like, okay, so when I hit an E flat chord, I can do a 2-5 half step down. And I thought of it again, like, okay, so the 5 chord is going to be a half step below the major chord that I resolved to, which means if I were to do it in the other key, it would be, let me think about this, So I was just thinking, like, slowly, just trying to put the pieces together, and then eventually I started soloing over. And then I did it again. Just trying to get the feel of the sounds. I'm going to be practicing that turnaround for probably the next month. And it's going to eventually click. So slow, dude, I'll take a month on one chord change. So yeah, I go real slow. I like understanding more than I like just, you know.
Yes, it's something I noticed with your clinics too, is you were quite attracted to the theory or theoretical part and the mathematical part of it. And,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Love that stuff.
Yeah. And have you found that by understanding that, because the reason I ask is a lot of people are afraid of theory, but even if you just begin to know little bits, it really opens up doors. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, would you agree that's just start with little things and...
Yeah, I would say, two things. I generally in my practice sessions would try to do one thing that was hard and then one thing that was easy. So on the theory realm, I would maybe say do one thing that's like basic, just to get the foundation, and then also that day do something fun. So for me, that would be like the one thing that's that's basic. I'd be like, if you don't know your major scale yet, just sit down with it. And we're not at theory now, not playing, so I'd go think about it. Just slow down for 20 minutes and go, that's a whole step. This is a whole step. Just get that in your mind. And go move around the neck and go, oh, whole step, that position's whole step. That's shape, where you go down 3 frets and over a string. That's a whole step. And then when I go to the GB string, whole step is 2 frets down across the string. Okay, cool, so that's a whole step. Got it. Major scale. That's another whole step. Then here's a half step. It's 1 fret. How would I play it this way? I play it that way. Okay. Understand the fretboard theory. 20 minutes, half an hour on that, and then you're like, God, that was boring. Then do something fun, like find a new chord that you've never played. Like search through the websites and be like, weird chord, like, and then just learn it. C7 flat 9 sharp 5. And then just like be like, oh, just enjoy the fact that that chord isn't any harder to play than any other chord. None of these chords are really ever hard. They're just weird. So this is just as easy to play as... C6 9, it uses 4 fingers. Well, so does C7 flat 9 sharp 5, 4 fingers. I mean, it's not really hard to play. So just play with it and then just see how it feels. Slide it up. And just be sloppy, So then you got one thing that you need to get, and then you got one thing you don't need, but it's fun. That's how I did a lot of my theory sessions. I just I'm going to keep this with me because I keep referring to it. So next question, just in case we need it.
All right, so number 3, it's probably the only one that doesn't, but you can chuck it in if you want. Who are some positive role models musically that have popped up in your life?
Wes Montgomery is, I never met him. He passed away in 1967, and it's his birthday today, actually. But he was the biggest role model musically because I grew up as a child actor. I'm really into acting. I still do some of that. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to do more of it one day. But I'm very attracted to authenticity. I remember watching TV shows when I was a kid where the girl would play coy, and I was just like, I'd roll my eyes. Like the whole oh yeah, I'm sorry. It's like, oh, you're acting so much. Just be nervous, feel it, and then we'll see it. I feel that way with music. Instead of being like, I'm so jazzy. If you are jazz, you are. If you're not, then you're not. Whatever. And this guy, Wes, was to me when I listen to him, he just seems so authentic. He doesn't seem like he's putting it on. He doesn't seem like he's trying to impress you. I hear who he is as a person. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's what I hear. So I just love him for that. So he was probably the biggest musical role model. But on a more personal, living level, my brother, huge role model. He was passionate about music at an age where I wasn't even sure if I wanted to be a baseball player or a doctor or I don't know what I wanted to be. He was very passionate about music. And I'd say 75 to 80% of the records I have or songs or recordings or things I've listened to have been through him. He'll say, hey, check out John Bryan's score of Eternal Sunshine. Hey, check out Amy Mann's recording on Magnolia's soundtrack. Hey, check out this Beatles record that our parents didn't play us when we were kids. Check this out. Check out this John Scofield record with Al Foster and Joe Lovano and Dave Holland. Hey, check out this other John Scofield record. And he just kept giving me records, and I was like, okay, I'll listen to him. So he's been a big role model, and he's world class. So it's kind of cool to have someone who's that crazy talented in your family. And he's acting, and he's doing a lot of other stuff, but musically, he's not, I don't even use the word typical. He's so far removed from this stereotype of actor-musicians who are they're not really world-class at either, or maybe they're world-class at one, but it's usually not music. But he's in my opinion, world-class at both, but especially on the musical tip, where it's holy crap. So yeah, I was very lucky to have him as brother growing up.
And is he doing much out in the public with music at the moment, or is he keeps it to himself?
He's been recording for like 2 years, like crazy. But his schedule's crazy with this TV show he's on. He's on a Showtime series called Penny Dreadful.
Okay.
So he's working a ton. So he finds time to record and mix. I think he has like 20 recordings. I mean, he's just sifting through, picking the right songs to release. But stuff sounds crazy. It's like amazing.
And
People will hear it. They will hear it soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can we find any of his older material on the net or anything? Or
Well, his older material would basically be under the band name that we had, Carney.
Okay.
So if you just typed in Carney into Google, I mean, we left Interscope, we left our manager, so there's not, I don't know if we even have a website anymore, but our record still is on iTunes and Spotify, and our music videos on Vivo and all that stuff. You can definitely hear him there.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Question number 4.
Yeah.
Guitarists that are in the early stages of touring, getting the music out there, how do you best go about getting an agent or a tour manager, and what do they, because this is the thing, is quite often musicians are looking for this person to help with this, but they don't quite get that they have to do a certain amount first themselves. So what's the best stages or steps to get those people on board, but also what do you need to do first?
Well, I would almost answer that 2 ways, because if someone is in the current music culture where they like record in GarageBand already or Ableton or Logic, and that's their voice, that's their instrument, and they're not spending hours practicing, it's tough. I don't know how to speak to that world, because my world's been so based in like, I don't know, I've probably played the guitar for more than 20,000 hours in my life already, because I've been just crazy about it. So, how would I... Because I'm guessing most musicians these days start that way. They start in the box, they're recording, they're producing. I mean, for that situation, I think songs, from what I hear, I'm learning myself, are where it's at. More so than impressing with techniques. Like, as long as it's almost like a movie. Like, the explosions could be great, the CGI could be great, but if there's not a story, it might sell money, it might be a blockbuster, it might be, but generally, movies without a really cool story, or at least a basic functioning story, don't get made. So that's, I think, important, the song. But also, yeah, working, staying in touch with a lot of different people, and not assuming that someone is not worth your time. Just like assuming that everyone kind of is, and just talking and staying in touch. And I mean, I have a lot of friends who opened for our band that we could have been like, we're selling 150 seats a week, like that's good, a big deal, and like we're not going to call you back. But we maintain friendships because we just love them as people and their music. And now those people are selling out arenas with famous bands that are theirs, that they're stars of. And it's like, interesting. Like it would have been easy to be. I mean, and some of these people even asked us like, how are you doing this each week? And then a year later, they're like massive artists. It's like, interesting. So I think it's important not just to preserve your career opportunities, but just in general to be nice to people. It usually works out. You feel better going to bed. I'll tell you that much. I definitely feel pretty clean going to bed, knowing that I'm not trying to use others like crazy.
I find don't be a dick is always good advice.
Don't be exactly. Yeah, it's a good motto. Yeah, I think Gandhi said that. Yeah.
Last one, man. What's your number one? No pressure or anything, but yeah, what's your number one bit of advice for musicians who aspire to play music for a living?
Okay, I would say similar to something I said before, but I would say spend time without an audience, without a manager in the room, without a family member you're trying to prove something to, without a friend you're trying to prove something to. Spend time, like, I don't know if you call it meditating, but just like journaling and really getting clear on, am I doing this because I'm supposed to be doing this and this is part of my purpose and path, or am I doing this because I think I'll get validation in my life from this? I think that's like, I don't know, I definitely know some people who this might not be the right path for them. And that's my assumption. I could be totally wrong. I could be like one of the people who said, Zane, you're not a singer. I could be that person to them. And maybe they need a person like me in their life to be that, because they can push through. I don't know. But, yeah, definitely, to me, I usually see 90% of musicians can make it if they want to, if they really are willing to put in the work, the work of practicing, the work of, instead of making an excuse and saying, well, people aren't going to want to hire me because like I don't play that style. Well, then learn it. Like no one's stopping you. Learn it. You know, like instead of making an excuse. And yet I've also seen maybe 10% of musicians be like they have a hard time staying on pitch. They have a hard time writing songs without other people helping. They get nervous on stage and don't really enjoy it. And I'm sort of like, man, if you're not really enjoying this, like, why do this? This is a hard life. And the money in music the past 10 years has been pretty weird. So it's sort of like the analogy I use is with athletes. If you really love football, American football, NFL, you'll play it. But if you're just as good at baseball or basketball, you'd probably rather choose those because you'll make 5 times the amount of money and your career will last 5 times as long. If you choose the NFL, average career is 3 years long. You make $500 to $1 million a year, which sounds like a lot of money. But after 3 years, your career is over, and you can't live on that for the rest of your life. So really, you should only play NFL if you love it. You really love it. Same with music. You can go into acting. You can make $500,000 or $100,000 on one film and be fine for the rest of the year. In music, to make $100,000, well, that's tough. That's hard.
Yeah.
So unless you're like a hired gun who's very in demand, or you're touring a lot and have no expenses and don't have a tour manager, or you just got really lucky with a few song sales. So really, if you're doing music, it's got to be because it's really been a gift you've been given. You really love it, and you really are down for the struggle. And so there are probably people listening now who are like, "That's me." It's like, great, do it. If there are people who are like, "I'm not sure," like I kind of am doing it because my parents told me I shouldn't be a musician. They told me I should be a doctor, and I wanted to be like, F you. But there are other ways to say F you to your parent than doing music. Like, you can just not be a doctor. That's already enough of an F you. You know, like, if you really... so I think the number one piece of advice would be, like, quiet time with oneself with as much humility as one can muster up to really see, am I doing this because it's my path, what I'm supposed to be doing or not? And I'm saying that because I got asked that question by a doctor in London. And he asked me probably the hardest question I've ever had to answer emotionally. He said, my voice is messed up again before surgery. He's like, I'm not insinuating anything. I've never heard you sing. But it seems like you play guitar with successful people. It seems like you're in demand as a guitar player. I said, yeah, I guess. He's like, so why are you here talking to me about singing? And I was like, what do you mean? I think people, he's like, I'm going to ask a very tough question. You've told me a lot about your family history. You've told me a lot about people saying you're not good enough. I'm just going to pose the question. Are you doing this because you want to prove to your brother that you're as good as he is? And I was like, huh? What? He's like, I'm just asking, are you sure you're good enough? I'm like, first off, how dare you? All right? Second off, I don't know. I'm probably not good. Like, be willing to ask those questions and not say, no, that's not why. But to be like, am I? Like, why am I doing this? You know? And I finally, said to him, I prayed about it. I meditated on it. I'm like, I really don't think I'm doing it. I think I'm doing it because I have something I want to share with people. And I think that I can only do it if I sing it. He's like, okay. If you're clear on that, fine. I get surgery. I come back a year later in June with John. And I sing, and he wrote me this long email. He's like, I am so glad that you sat with yourself and discovered, because you are a singer. Like, it's not that I didn't believe in you. I never heard you sing. It's more like you needed to be clear on that for you. Yeah. And now you are. It's like the Matrix, that sort of thing. Don't think you are, know you are, that whole crap. So anyway, that's the number one piece of advice. Really sit down with oneself and think and meditate on, with humility as much as you can, why am I doing this? I don't know.
Very cool, man. It's really cool, actually. Awesome.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Hey, cheers for the interview, brother. It's good talking to you again.
Absolutely. I wish I had some New Zealand dates to announce on this whole thing, because we're doing this interview finally, but I would hope sometime in the next 2 years I'll be coming down under.
Cool. We'll all keep an eye out, and
Awesome.
Keep me posted too, dude, and if there's anything I can help you just share or flick out or whatever, just let me know.
Thanks, man. I look forward to people seeing this online, because this is very different than any interview I've done. We got more into thoughts and not just gigs and music, so this will be cool for people to see. I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Okay, dude, well, good luck with it.
Thanks, man. Have a great day, Ryan.
Awesome. See you, man.
All right, see you.